Hey everyone, massive July 4th sale, 20% off the entire site until July 10th.
We would be honored if you would join us.
So here's a theory that I have, and it didn't really occur to me until I said it publicly in that Rule of Two interview that I had a few weeks ago on Collider. So for those of you who saw it and have been asking for me to continue this theory and make a video on its own for it, thanks for waiting and sorry it took so long. Rey's parents, we've all been wondering for about 4 years now since The Force Awakens came out. Yeah, I know, it's been that long. Is she a Skywalker? Is she a Kenobi? Is she a Palpatine? Is she coming from drunk scavenger parents like Kylo kinda said? A Solo, perhaps? Or is she just a girl that portrays that everyone can use the Force and that it's not just for one selected person, like the broom boy in The Last Jedi? While many, including myself, have thought to believe that she's maybe a Skywalker or a Kenobi, as we hear Obi-Wan speaking directly to her when she touched the Skywalker lightsaber, I have another theory. What if the searching is unnecessary at this point? What if the answer we've been looking for is right in front of us, but we've been too busy trying to solve the riddle, thinking it's a difficult Rubik's Cube that needs solving? Maybe it doesn't. What if the answer that we wanted was given to us in Episode 8? When Rey fell into the dark side cave, we had some homage paid to the dark side tree cave on Dagobah with Yoda from Episode 5. Yoda told Luke to be cautious when he goes in there, as he can only expect to find that which he takes with him. Luke walks in and found himself fighting Vader, only to behead him and find that the mask exploded, revealing his face. This was basically symbolizing his fear of turning to the dark side himself, his fear of becoming what he swore to destroy, his fear of himself. That's why Vader's head turned into his face when the mask was revealed. Rey's experience in the cave was different. She wanted to know who her parents are. Once we saw her observing literal thousands of versions of herself, we knew something was up. When she touched the mirror, we ended up on the other side of it, as we can see. We can see this because we have to look at the very first Rey who moves to conclude that that's the original Rey, or at least the Rey that we've been following in the story. As she snapped her fingers, they all snapped, but not in unison, with a time delay. A normal mirror wouldn't do that. The snap would be instantaneous. Rey, in my opinion, was looking at all her former versions of herself. I think she was a clone. There were literally tens of thousands of them. I believe they took inspiration from the Force Unleashed game and used this plot to create Rey. Now, in the game, it was next to impossible to create a Force-sensitive clone in the second one, and it required thousands of failed attempts. We can see Vader walking into the chamber of different clones being made, and the ones that didn't make the cut or weren't Force-sensitive basically were just discarded until the right one was formed. Only the Empire could do something so callous and so evil, which they did in the old Legends games. So it's possible, I mean, I could be completely wrong here, but it's possible that this theory could be true. As she looks at the mirror on the wall, or of the cave, she sees two people come together. Now, this is where things get really weird, and I need you to stick with me. The shadows, to me, look like Chewie and Han. Now, that's not indicating that they're her parents, but maybe that they raised her, or took care of her, or maybe that's all she knows as parental figures. Maybe that's what she wants. I'm really not sure what to expect. I mean, the arms on the left figure go down to the mid-thigh, or even below. This doesn't really look like a normal human if we compare it to the right one, especially. And then let's look at its neck. It looks like a massive Wookiee, especially the way it walks, and in comparison to the person next to it, which looks like someone walking with a holster or lightsaber on their right-hand side, as their arm comes around it, or holds onto it. Now, the only other possible explanation is that it's Vader and Luke, but I mean, they would have to blend in the helmet so perfectly into the shoulders, which that's kind of what it looks like they did, because everyone knows Vader's shadow. So I'm thinking that maybe she's a clone from both maybe Anakin and Luke, or she's just been cared for by Han Solo and Chewie. I mean, that would be a massive trip. Could you guys imagine Luke and Anakin formed into one clone? Either way, if she is a clone, then who was the original template from? It would make sense that the cloning facility is being used by the person who organized it all together, Palpatine himself. It wouldn't really make sense for him to use that technology and facility for just creating troops. I mean, I'm sure there were many classified operations undergoing on Kamino, or some type of lab somewhere else. Perhaps the lab Palpatine oversaw on Jakku, since we know that he did have one built there before the Phantom Menace, which is canon info. What the lab did, for all we know, could have had a separate sector for classified things like cloning. Now, also in the Aftermath novels, there were these dark acolytes. These guys were looking for Vader's lightsaber, so it could be that they were kind of doing some sort of scavenger hunt for Palpatine after his death. And one of the things that they were doing was upholding the cloning facility and creating some sort of mega force user. I don't know. So could it mean that she's a Solo, or that she's someone that was taken into the care of Chewie and Han? and when times got hairy, no pun intended, she was put on Jakku. How else might Han know of Unkar Plutt? I mean, it's possible he might just know of him, but how else would the Falcon have just so easily ended up on Jakku eventually, in Unkar's hands? Plot armor, of course, and I know you might all be saying that, but I believe with Star Wars there should be a lot of thought going into the story, so that things all make sense once they're put together when Episode 9 is done. And I know I'm getting a lot of eye rolling from that comment, but come on, I hope they really, thought of everything here. So if Rey is a clone, that means that someone did this to her. I believe only the Empire, or the remnants of it, would do something like this. Maybe from Luke's hand, or maybe they have taken Kylo and cloned him to create his perfect counterpart, his equal in the Force, but in the light side, just as Snoke was saying. In an interview, Daisy Ridley said that it's super obvious who her parents are just by watching Episode 7. I think it's safe to say that we get the vibe that Han knows Rey, and he wants to hire her on the spot to stick with them. Why? That's not really in Han's behavior. I think he and Chewie must have raised her, those shadows look way too close to being them than maybe anyone else. And again, I could be wrong, it's just a theory, but this stuff is just kind of making sense. If that's the case, then where did she come from? A clone has to come from somewhere, just like all the clones came from Jango. So what was her lineage? Imagine if she's some sort of hybrid of Palpatine or Anakin, and Luke from Luke's severed hand, the perfect Force entity, ultimately powerful, just not knowing how to tame that power. That would make sense as to how she could tap into the Force so easily when she fought Kylo for the first time. In George Lucas's original Episode 7, 8, and 9 script, he had a girl named Kira, who is now Rey, I believe. She was the sister of Kylo, or, Ben Solo. So they could just be pulling from all different parts of Legends and forming one story to bind it all together. Also, apparently, George wanted to bring Palpatine back too, so I guess we're gonna have to wait and see how this all happens. Now, I believe, as I've said many times before, it'll be through essence transfer, and Palpatine will return by entering the vessel of an able young acolyte of the dark side. Someone powerful and able to take his full strength, as the wrong host wouldn't be able to handle it and would probably die. This is also the reason that I think maybe Palpatine wanted to train Anakin so much, and he was so disappointed when Anakin failed to Obi-Wan and basically lost a lot of his Force powers, because then once Palpatine would transfer his essence, it would never be living up to, its full potential. Now, something else that really sparks my interest, which I've just recently learned, is from the Vader Immortal game, the one I just covered the other day, that Vader actually knew the way to be immortal. The ability and power resided under his castle in another castle, which required a key. He had possession of this key, but the only way to enter it was if you were a direct descendant of Lady Corvax. And Lady Corvax basically, I've made tons of videos on this, you guys can go watch those, but she was basically this person who lived on Mustafar back when it was a lush green planet, and she used this orb of light which could bring back the dead after her husband died. But once he died, she tried to use it, and it ended up destroying the planet and turning Mustafar into the lava planet that we know today. So is it possible that Palpatine might be using this knowledge to come back as well? Or maybe Rey is a direct descendant of Lady Corvax? Now, something else I want to make a video on is that Snoke actually had another apprentice, and this was mentioned in canon. So where is this guy? Why was he mentioned in the books and just never shown up in the movies? So maybe he's going to be the one that Palpatine actually transfers his essence into. I don't really know. There are lots of things to ponder from this video, so let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think Rey is a clone of someone, or do you disagree entirely? Why was she jumped on Jakku? Why do the shadows look like Chewie and Han? Or maybe they look like someone else, like Vader and Luke put together. If we also notice something, her attack movements against Kylo in The Force Awakens were very similar to that of Palpatine versus Mace. She does a lot of the same jabbing motions that Palpatine was doing. Could she be a descendant of Palpatine, or a clone of him of some sorts? Now, to circle back and basically talk about those people in The Last Jedi who think that Kylo really was serious in telling the truth about Rey's parentage, that they were just drunkards and nobodies. I think that was part of Kylo's plan. He was basically just saying that to Rey to make her really not care about her lineage and to let it go forever. That way she would have nothing to hold on to, and she would join him in galactic domination. So the fact that he was lying, which I'm pretty sure he was, just proves to me that her lineage is actually very important. That all being said, I'm very open to whatever lineage she has or comes from, and I guess we'll have to wait and see until episode 9 comes out. There are a ton of different theories that I got cooking up here, so I need you guys to let me know which ones you want me to cover, what you think could really be happening here, and I thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like on it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you, always.